Guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a story time about my labor and delivery. So if you want to know what went down during my labor, what happened, what complications, epidural, no epidural, just keep on watching. Let me start off by saying, obviously I am a first-time mommy and I went over my due date. My due date was supposed to be June 5th. The doctor had told me to kind of go by what my mom ended up being with me. So my mom only made it to 38 weeks with me, but then again, I was her second child. So she only made it to 38 weeks with me. And I was kind of expecting the same thing for my baby girl, which did not happen. Her birthday is actually on June 12th. And the way that it happened is I didn't naturally go into labor. I had an appointment, so I was induced a Tuesday and I had her by Wednesday. I went to go see my doctor. And I remember laying there, they had hooked me onto the stress test just to see how she was doing, if she was still happy, because by then she was a week overdue. She was really happy. She was making a storm inside my belly. You could hear all the movements and her heart rate was great. So he walked in and he's like, "So are you ready to be done?" And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess I was. I'm one of those people. I hated my first trimester. The puking took over. I lost a lot of weight. I lost about 20 pounds. And I just didn't have fun. My second trimester started getting a little bit better about halfway through. The vomiting went away, so that was the plus. That was the best thing ever. Obviously, the second trimester is also known for being amazing because of the movement that you start feeling at about 16 to 20 weeks practically. So that was a nice bonus. So I lost one thing and I gained, her movement, which was great. But the third trimester was my absolute favorite. I loved it. Then again, I believe it's because I didn't gain any weight. I didn't gain very much weight because I had lost so much weight. So it wasn't as hard on my body as I think it could have been. But regardless of that, I just loved it. Her movements were strong and prominent. I could see, I could visually see her moving. And I loved it. I loved being pregnant. I never felt alone. She was a great little companion. So when he's like, "Do you want to be done already?" I was kind of like, "Oh, well," and I did ask, I said, "Well, what's gonna happen if I just let her come on her own?" And he did say that there was risks because the placenta does get old and it can start to detach, and that's, the lifeline from you to your baby. So stillbirth increases and all those things. So I said, no, if there's any risk, of that, then I'm not going to take it and you can induce me whenever you want. So he checked me. I had been dilated at a 2 for 2 weeks. And he did say I was effacing, I believe it's called, when you start thinning out, your cervix starts thinning out and it gets nice and soft. So it's preparing for birth. But my body wasn't doing all of the other stuff yet. So he didn't really tell me, but I think at some point we kind of agreed something had to be done, and he stripped my membranes. That is not fun. So obviously he's checking you and he has to get things going. It's not very comfortable. And he did that and he said, "I want to do that for you because that's the most natural way of getting things going. Because if it doesn't work," he's like, "you have to call tomorrow at 5 a.m. to the hospital so they have a room ready for you so they can actually induce you with Pitocin." So yeah, I was like, okay, if that's what you think you need to do, to get things going, that's fine. If it doesn't, then I'll call tomorrow and I'll set up an appointment to get induced. So that was at about 11 a.m. I went about my day. I actually went back to work. I had stopped working the Friday before, like Friday was my last day at work. I just took 3 days off. So that day I went back to work just to check in with a coworker and to let everyone know that yes, I was still preggers, because they all wanted to know. They were all waiting for an email, and I was like, no, people, still pregnant. Then it happened to be my friend's lunch hour. We did go out to lunch. She's like, let me treat you to lunch, this could be your last pregnant lunch. And I'm like, all right, whatever, feed me. I ended up watching about an episode and a half of House, I remember, and I was just laying on my bed and relaxing. And out of nowhere, I just was like, you know what? I'm kind of craving a yogurt. What if I do go into labor and then they're not gonna let me eat? So I got up, and as soon as I got up, my water broke. That was about at 4:40 p.m. On the 11th. And I was like, I think my water just broke. I was by myself. My husband was at work, and I was like, yeah. And I went to the bathroom because my phone was charging in there, and then I was leaking. It was like a gush. It wasn't where it like pops in the movies and it's like, whoa, a puddle. It was definitely not like that. I did feel a lot of liquid, but it more ran like down my thighs. So I went to the bathroom and I got my phone and I called my husband.
Hey, are you busy?
No, why?
My water broke.
What?
Yeah, my water broke.
Oh my god, I'm on my way home.
We ended up leaving to the hospital and I did the check-in. By that point, they had taken us up to a room. Anyone that knows me, I did tell everyone that my goal was to have a natural birth. That's all I wanted. I did not want an epidural. I wanted to try and do it naturally as possible. I tried to mentally prepare myself for what was to come. And when I got to the hospital, my contractions were very tiny, like almost nothing. And I call her my adoptive mom. My adoptive mom was there with me for a few hours, and she would come and go because she does have her own family. So then things started escalating. I would feel a lot of pain. I was getting contractions pretty frequently. I was having back labor. So after that, they come and check you every so often to see how much you're dilated and to see if you're, facing even more, if you're thinned out completely. Unfortunately, I was still at a 2, like a 2.5. And all night, me and my husband were walking the halls. Like, I was walking. They put you, so if your water breaks, they'll test the fluid to see if it really was your water. Mine obviously came back positive that it was the fluid. They hook you up to the fetal stress test for 20 minutes, and then they might let you walk for 40, and then you have to come back, and then another 20 minutes, and then another 40, since you are losing all of that fluid, and your baby, might get in distress or whatever. So they were just constantly hooking me up and like unhooking me. And when I wasn't hooked on, we were walking the whole hospital. We were making laps. I wanted to get things going. So because I've heard that helps sometimes, it depends on the person. So we were walking and walking and walking and walking. Well, friends, after 17 hours of hard labor, of like contractions every 2 minutes, like lasting about, I want to say 30 seconds. Oh my God, they were so painful. They came in to check me and I was at a 3. She's like, if you don't make any progress from here to 4, I'm gonna have to hook you on to Pitocin. And I was like, no. I have heard that when they hook you on to Pitocin, your contractions are much stronger, much more painful. So I was kind of scared. My baby was super happy still. She came in, she's like, I have to hook you on. Like, I can't let you labor on your own and not, move along, because the baby might be in distress and then you will end up having a C-section. So I was like, okay, that's fine. She hooked me onto Pitocin, and I remember her saying that they are more painful because they determine how much Pitocin they're giving to you. So like, let's say they'll start off at like 14. And if you're not moving along, then they'll bump it up. So they might go to 16. If it's still not working, they'll bump it up to 18, and then like it's full on contractions. And I remember getting scared. Like my contractions were very painful. I feel like I could have gone naturally the whole way. But it's scary. When you're in that moment, it's really scary, especially for me. I always tell everyone this. My mom had all 3 of her kids, like, naturally, no epidural. And when she found out that I was pregnant, she would always tell me,
You can't get the epidural. I had you naturally. And if I had you naturally, then you have to have your baby naturally.
and I'm like, Mom, I'm not you, you know, and you think your pain tolerance, you think you'll be able to do it, and you hope that you'll be able to do it if that's your goal. But the contractions were painful. I did find a way to cope with them, but I panicked. I panicked because after you're hooked onto Pitocin, and everyone tells you that later down the road, if you do want the epidural, you might not be able to get it because you won't be able to sit still through your contractions. And that is what scared me the most. And I remember feeling guilty. Guilty because I wanted the epidural, because I didn't know how more intense it was gonna get, and also because my body just wasn't moving along. Like, it wasn't wanting to, you know, dilate to 10. So I was really scared, and I remember I was like, well, what if I want the epidural and then I can't get the epidural, or what if I want it and then I move and then they can paralyze me, or I can get an infection, because they tell you all the things that can happen. And I was like, no, like, I need to call my mom, and I need to be like,
Mom, can I please get the epidural?
you know, and that's what was coming to my mind. There was a lot of pressure to not get the epidural. And I remember I got up to use the restroom, and my husband went in there to help me, and I remember saying, hey, like, babe, can I get the epidural? And I said, I'm scared that I'll want it down the road and I won't be able to do it. Like, I won't be able to get it. And he's like, you do whatever you have to do. Like, if you want the epidural right now because you feel like you can sit still and like maybe later you won't be able to, just get it. He's like, I'm on your side, and whatever you want to do is whatever is going to be done. And I remember my nurse came in. She would like rub my back, and she was like soothing me, and she's like, do you want me to get the doctor to come in and give you, you know, your epidural? She's like, I'm telling you because I've seen mommies that go through it naturally, and I see all of the pain that they have to endure, you know, and she's like, I understand that we're made for it, but there is a way to cope with this pain. I can't tell you what to do. She's like, but if you do get it, you'll realize, you know, that maybe you wanted it sooner. And sometimes for some people it slows everything down, but you're not progressing, so maybe it'll help you speed things up. You are not a wimp for wanting it. Major props for your 17 hours of laboring on your own. You did great, but maybe you need a rest. Like, my husband hadn't slept, like, he labored with me all night, but then he had gone to work that whole day, so we didn't sleep all night. I said, you know what, just give me the epidural. I said, just give it to me. So I ended up getting the epidural. They say that the I think it's the lidocaine shot to numb before they actually put in the big giant needle is what feels like a bee sting. I did not feel that at all. I feel like I didn't have any pain with that. Because then again, you're going through contractions, and contractions on their own are far worse than, you know, a little pinch or a needle. So after I got the shot, maybe 3 hours after that, I had progressed a lot. I went from being at a 3 to an 8.5, almost a 9. And me and my husband were able to get a little bit of sleep. We got 3 hours of sleep. I fell asleep that whole time. At some point, my doctor came in and they did check me. They told me that I was at a 8.5, 9. So a couple more hours and I would be ready to go. So at that point, everything was going smoothly. Then they started getting really strong. At some point, I started feeling my contractions again. Weirdly only on one side of my body. So my left side was actually numb and my right side was not numb anymore. I was feeling all of my contractions, and I remember pushing the button as like, because it has to recharge. It won't let you give yourself too much of it. It'll give you maybe 1 dose every blah blah blah. And I had pushed it and it was not working, and then slowly the left side became numb as well. And at this point my contractions were super strong and they were coming like every minute. Like they were intense. I remember I would hold on to the rail of the bed and I'd breathe through it. So then my nurse, my second shift nurse came in, because they swap out every 12 hours, came in, and she's like, how are you doing? And I'm like, you know what, I'm starting to feel everything again. I'm having a lot of back pain. And she's like, do you want more epidural? And I'm like, no, like this epidural is not helping my back pain. And she's like, well, we can give you a dose of something else, I can't remember what it is, to help numb you again. I said, no, I don't need numbing. I need something for my back, if there's anything. And she's like, there's not. It'll only numb you from your from like waist down, you know. At some point I remember feeling like it was time to push. Like we had done practice pushes with the nurse, and when we did those practice pushes I remember feeling relief. So I started feeling like I needed to push. So I told my mom, adoptive mom, to call the nurse please, and I told her that I had the sensation of needing to push, and if she could please call the doctor, because I think it was time. And she checked me, she was like, you're out of 10, you're ready to go. I was like, can I start pushing without him? I obviously know that I'm not gonna push this baby out in like, you know, 3 pushes. She's like, yeah, go ahead. And she's like, the only problem is that your baby hasn't dropped. She's like, this is the downfall of having an epidural, because right now we would have put you on the birth ball, or we would have put you all on 4s as well. And I said, well, I can do that. And she's like, no, you can't, you know, it's okay, you don't have to force yourself, it's super dangerous. And I said, no, like, you don't understand, I have full function of my feet. And she's like, no. And I'm like, lady, like, I can move my feet, like I feel everything. My epidural is not working. It hasn't been working for a couple of hours, like if not more. She's like, what? And I said, yeah, but is it okay if I try? And she's like, well, if you can move. She's like, yeah. So I flipped over. I only needed a little bit of help. I flipped over and I was on 4s, and they gave me a peanut ball. For every time I had a contraction, I would lean back against my legs, like against my feet, and I would push down. And then when the contraction would go away, I'd lean back forward into the ball. And then again, when the contraction was coming, I would lean down and push. And it worked. My baby dropped. And by the time the doctor got there, it was officially time to push. We started pushing. I only pushed for 45 minutes and she was out, which is great. And then I remember the nurse had my right leg, my husband had my left leg, my adoptive mom had the pillow, so every time I would push and lift my head, she would put the pillow against my head. And the doctor was just standing there, you know, they just stand there and catch the baby, that's what they're there for. So I remember when I started pushing, I would just look at my husband. If he went like this, as he's looking, I was like, okay, I'm doing something right, so keep it going. We did a few pushes, and I think for me the hardest part was to get her head out, not even her shoulders, because some people say that the shoulders because they're wider. For me it was just getting the head out. And after that it was pretty easy peasy. After the shoulders come out, your baby just slides right out, and they put him or her on your chest. My baby got a 9 out of 10 on her APGAR score. They just placed her on my chest, and Dad cut the umbilical cord, and then they kind of just clean her off on you a little bit. And they just leave her on you for a bit, I want to say for an hour. They give you really that skin to skin mommy baby bonding time, which is amazing. They give you a little bit of time to recover on your own in that delivery room, and after a while they do transfer you to your recovery room. After the delivery, I remember I got a lot of family over to see the baby. I didn't get up to go to the restroom. The last people left at like 11 p.m. She was born at 4:37 in the afternoon, which was a 24-hour full time of my labor. And also when they left, here's when things took a little turn for the worse. My nurse came in and she checked my bed pad, and she's like, hey, when was the last time they changed your pad? And I said, no one's came and changed my pad. She's like, when was the last time you went to the bathroom? I said, I haven't gone to the bathroom. And she's like, we need to get you there, like, right now. And I said, okay. My husband was with the baby at the time, and he was taking care of her, making sure that she had everything she needed besides breastfeeding. Because I did feel a little weak. Apparently they now tell me, my mom and my husband, that when I did have the baby, there was blood everywhere, like on the floor. But being a first-time mom, you don't know what to expect, so you don't know how much blood is too much blood, you know? So I didn't know. She's like, okay, I need you to get up so we can take you to the restroom. I said, okay. So I tried to get up, and that did not work. I think I tried about almost 10 times. 2 of those times I actually fainted. Like, I remember getting up and saying, you know, I'm dizzy, and I would sit back down and lean against the bed, and then I don't remember, and then I remember waking up and her saying, hey, like trying to get me, you know, to come back. And that happened about twice. And I remember looking over at my husband, and he was petrified, to say the least. Like, his face was pale, and he's like, hey, he's like, don't do that. He's like, yes, please. He's like, you need to be strong. You need to be strong for her. You need to be strong for me. And I was like, no, like, I didn't pass out. And after that, after those 2 times, the nurse, I saw her face. She's like, we need to get you to the restroom, like, right now. And she's like, I can see that you're not strong enough to walk, so I'm gonna bring the wheelchair, and then you just have to stand and sit. And I was like, okay, that's fine. So she brought the wheelchair, and then I did that. I transferred myself to the chair, and then we did the same in the bathroom. At that point, my husband had put the baby down in her little crib, in the little thing that they give you, so he could help me. And when I got to the bathroom, they did help me. I sat down, and I passed a clot about this size. And I remember feeling it, and I looked down and I saw it. I told the nurse, I just passed a really big clot. And she's like, no. And I said, I saw it. Like, I just saw it. It was huge. It was about the size of both of my fists. And she looked at me, and she's like, I'll check it right now when you stand up. And I remember seeing black. Like, I started seeing black around. And I looked at my husband, and I told him, I'm going to pass out, like, right now. I said, don't let me fall. And I passed out. I don't remember. Like, I don't remember any of it. I remember waking up next to the bed on the wheelchair, like, passed out. And my husband had tears in his eyes, and he was pale as a ghost. And he was, like, practically crying. And the nurse is like, how do you feel? And there was a lot of nurses in there, but she was the one that was talking to me. She's like, how do you feel? And I was like, I don't know, like, what happened? I told my husband, I was like, hey, you need to call mom. And he's like, why? And I said, because if you're here helping me, I want to make sure that she's not alone and someone's taking good care of her. And he's like, okay. So he called her. She did go to the hospital, and she was with the baby for a bit until they kind of got me, you know, fixed and checked and everything. We'll also be making a care routine for postpartum, so just stay tuned, guys. There's a lot of mommy videos coming your way. But that was all for my 24-hour labor. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like my video, subscribe to my channel, turn on that post notification bell so you know every time I'm posting and you won't miss any of my mommy videos. And I will see you guys in my next video.